Working abroad is a big dream that many people have. Living and working abroad temporarily can be an incredibly valuable experience, whether it is for a few years only or permanently. It offers the best chance to get to know and love another culture, learn a new language, and be more independent. However, many people who want to make their dream of living abroad come true quickly realize that this can often be associated with a lot of administrative and legal hurdles. To be more specific, the big issue is the following. You need a work permit in the country in which you want to live and work, and this is often a lot more complicated than people think. In this video, I will explain to you why getting a work permit in another country can be really complicated sometimes by giving you an example of how it works in my home country, which is in Switzerland. In the second part of this video, I will point out to you some possibilities of how you can start if you want to make your dream of living and working abroad come true. And by the way, for those who don't know me yet, my name is Laura. I'm a bar licensed attorney working for a court of law in Switzerland, where I currently focus on migration law amongst other areas of the law. Back to our topic from today, let me tell you why moving to Switzerland or to another European country can be quite difficult. In Switzerland, by law, work permits for foreign employees can only be issued to what is considered well-qualified employees. While this might sound pretty simple to you now, there's actually a lot more to it. In reality, being a well-qualified employee means that you are most certainly required to have a university degree and several years of work experience. In addition to that, your employment must serve the economic needs of the country, and there must be an urgent need for it in the Swiss labor market. Besides that, there is more so-called integration criteria that will be evaluated when making the decision of whether to issue a work permit to foreign employees or not. These criteria can include, for instance, your language skills and/or your age. And as you might realize now, this narrows the scope quite a bit already. But there is one more big issue to face. In many countries, including Switzerland, if employers want to hire a person from another country, they first must prove that there is no suitable candidates that could be found in the domestic labor market, meaning that there is no so-called domestic potential. In Switzerland, the requirements for hiring somebody coming from a country outside of the European Union are even higher. Employers must first prove that they could not find any suitable candidates in all of Switzerland and in all the countries of the European Union. Providing this kind of proof is already a lot of work, but in addition to that, there is one more problem. There is an annual limit of how many work permits can actually be issued to foreign employees per year, and there is no exception to that. To see those numbers, let's have a quick look at a graphic for the year 2023, which is really interesting. As we see, there are two types of residence permits that can be issued as work permits in Switzerland. L permits, which are short-term residence permits that are valid for maximum 1 year, and B permits that are usually valid for 1 to 5 years before they need to be renewed. So for 2023, we see that a total of 8,500 work permits can be issued to foreign employees that are not citizens of a country in the European Union or of the United Kingdom. 3,500 people from all the countries in the European Union can be issued a work permit in Switzerland, and 3,500 permits can be issued to citizens from the UK. Although these numbers only concern Switzerland, there are systems similar to that in many countries that all aim at regulating immigration. If a country has a system with a limited number of work permits for foreign employees, big companies that are considered market leaders, such as for instance Google, Nestle or pharmaceutical companies, have a big advantage. They often have way bigger resources to handle the whole application process. In addition to that, they can often render proof that they need to hire a specialist in a certain field or international managers, for instance. And these people meet the definition of well-qualified employees whose employment serves the economic needs of the country. That means that a lot of the annual work permits that are issued are given to these big companies, which makes it, of course, a lot harder for smaller businesses to hire foreign employees as well. If we look at the US, for instance, The requirements for working there for foreigners are equally high. There are different kinds of visas that can be issued, but they normally have to be supported by an employer in the US. And besides the formal application process, it is sometimes even necessary to visit a US consulate and to undergo an additional interview to get permission to work in the US. As you can see now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, getting a work permit in another country can be quite complicated. But despite these complications, let's look at some possibilities how you can hopefully make it work anyways. Option number one is to get transferred by an international company that has offices in other countries. It can be a lot easier to start working for an international company that is located in your home country, and after having gained some experience there and after having proven yourself, require to be transferred to one of their other offices abroad. If you work for a company, you may have insight into their international job advertisements. You can therefore regularly have a look at vacancies all over the world, and if you see a position that is interesting to you, you can start the internal transfer process. If you're good, your company will most likely want you to keep working for them, even if that means that you do so in another country. They will therefore most likely rather support your whole application process and your whole transfer process than another company that is located abroad who has never seen you, never talked to you, and never worked with you before. Option number two to work abroad is to find a remote job that allows you to work from anywhere in the world. If you manage to find a remote job, it can actually be a lot easier to move to and work from another country because you may not actually need a work permit that an employer that is located in this other country needs to get for you. Instead, you already have an employer in your home country that is paying your salary, covering your insurance, etc., etc. In this case, it might actually be enough to prove that you have the financial means to support yourself to get a residence permit in another country. And in some cases, this can be a lot easier than actually getting a work permit. This is particularly true if an out-of-state employer pays you a salary that will be taxed in the country that you're living in. It can also be easier if you manage to provide some proof that in the future you will be able to provide new jobs in the country that you're moving to, for instance, because you're starting a small business. Finally, a third option to get closer to moving and working abroad can be if you study there beforehand. Getting a student visa is often a lot less complicated than getting another kind of visa which would allow you to work abroad. In addition to that, if you successfully graduate from a university abroad, if you undergo a training there or do an apprenticeship, it makes you a more qualified and therefore more interesting employee for local employers there. While studying abroad, you might get the chance to make some first business connections or to do an internship, which can be a first but very important step to getting your foot in the door. To have an additional advantage, you can even do some research in advance and find out what jobs are urgently needed in the country that you want to move to. And to have an advantage, you can then match your training or your education to those needs, provided of course that they fit your interests and your skills. With this, we're slowly getting to the end of today's video, but if you have made your own experience with moving abroad and starting a new job there, I would absolutely love to hear more about it, so please feel free to share some of your experience in the comment section down below with me and others. Also, if you learned something from this video or if it was helpful to you, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Finally, if you're currently in a relationship with somebody living in another country and if you plan to build a future together by living in the same country, make sure not to miss my next video, which will be coming out very soon. As always, thank you guys for watching and I hope to be talking to you again soon.